That's a big deal.
Oh.
That's a big one also. Well, President Zelenskyy has described their talk as long and meaningful. Also, Chinese state media reported that President Xi told Zelenskyy that Beijing would send special representatives to Ukraine and hold talks with all parties seeking peace. Xi also supposedly told the Ukrainian president that China will focus on promoting peace talks and make efforts for a ceasefire as soon as possible.
U.S. is Ukraine's biggest ally. We know that in the West. So how do they react to these talks?
Well, the White House says, Mase, that they do welcome this call between Zelenskyy and Xi, but of course they also said that it's too soon to tell whether this could lead to a peace deal. Still, for President Zelenskyy, this talk really was an opportunity to forward the peace process. Let's hear it from the president himself.
Зараз є можливість дати нову енергію нашим відносинам України та Китаю. Є можливість застосувати політичний вплив Китаю, щоб повернути силу принципам і правилам, на яких має триматися мир.
Okay, let's discuss this further with political analyst Richard Haydarian. He's joining us live via Zoom. Girls, Mase and Sean, welcome to The Big Story.
Hi, Richard. Are you there?
Thanks, as always.
Yeah.
Hello. So, Richard, what gives? Is China really acting like the peacemaker here? Do you see this talk eventually leading to a peace deal, or is this all just for show? What gives?
Yeah, I mean, first of all, the timing is important. I think when it comes to Chinese diplomacy, especially high-stakes diplomacy, there isn't much of coincidence. I think there's always some sort of a conscious decision behind it. The timing is important because over the past few days, China's relations with Europe have been in a kind of a patchy situation after the Chinese ambassador to France in an interview, public interview, said a number of things that were very disparaging of Eastern European countries, essentially questioning their independence and their genuine, nature as independent nation states. So that created a lot of backlash and negative commentaries in Europe. So my sense is it made perfect sense for Xi Jinping to finally make that call to Zelenskyy right now to say that no, China still wants to be a peacemaker. And of course, he also had a few months ago the Global Security Initiative, whereby he's trying to present China as a global peacemaking power, not just as a global economic power, but peacemaking power. So I think the timing raises some skepticism. But the big question really here is, what can China really do? Because if you look at China, their position is very, very tortured. I remember very well last year in the Munich Security Conference in Germany, on one hand, then Foreign Secretary Wang Yi of China said, we respect territorial integrity of countries. On the other hand, he refused to criticize Russia because Russia is a close ally of China. So in a way, parang ipit din ng China. So they have a very tortured position when it comes to this issue.
Richard, actually, so we've been talking about China, Russia, Ukraine. Yung Philippines naman, tell us, how does this factor in when you talk about Philippine foreign relations? No, kasi the U.S. has been sending weapons, China brokering peace. How about us? What does this tell you?
Yeah, I mean, first of all, when it comes to the Ukraine conflict actually inspired the type of exercises that the Philippine Army did with the Americans earlier this year, and also during Balikatan exercises. So literally the lessons the U.S. is learning from beating the Russians via the Ukrainians' patriotic resistance, they're applying those to the Philippines in an event of war, whether it's over Taiwan or whether it's over the South China Sea with China. So operationally, there are a lot of lessons being drawn. But the other thing for the Philippines is, I think, we're also recognizing that this President Marcos Jr. is recognizing that if you don't have a superpower ally and then you're confronting another superpower, you're going to be very vulnerable. So many would argue that had Ukraine been a member of NATO, or had Ukraine had a major defense treaty with any other Western power, it would not have been invaded to begin with. But it got invaded precisely because it was vulnerable and ripe for picking as far as Putin's Russia's calculus was concerned. So there are a lot of lessons for the Philippines. As far as President Marcos Jr. is concerned, while he sounded quote-unquote neutral on the Ukrainian issue, he called Zelenskyy earlier this year, and he, at least in abstract terms, expressed solidarity with the Ukrainian people without directly condemning Russia. But the Department of Foreign Affairs, since last year, has consistently voted in favor of Ukraine. We're the only ASEAN country, in addition to the exiled government of Myanmar, that has consistently voted in favor of Ukraine in multiple United Nations General Assembly and other multilateral fora votes. So actually, we have been solid with Ukraine as far as our voting record is concerned.
All right. Richard, you've mentioned super ally. Do you see this as one of the reasons why President Bongbong Marcos himself will visit the U.S. next week and personally talk to President Joe Biden? That's one. And number two, should we really look at their presence as offensive rather than defensive? The U.S., I mean.
Right. Actually, we were expecting the visit to the White House to happen earlier, perhaps in April rather than May. But President Yoon of South Korea, who I got to know actually is a great singer. Look at the videos of him singing American Pie in the White House just the other night. Nauna siya, so medyo may traffic dyan sa White House. And the meeting has to happen earlier than later because magsisimula ng US elections soon, no? Now, speaking of the US-Philippine alliance, President Marcos is going there to essentially make sure that the EDCA is an uneven keel. And when I say even keel, what do I mean by that? I think President Marcos Jr. wants to have enough of Americans in the Philippines to make the Chinese think twice about bullying the Philippines, but he doesn't want to have too many of Americans here or an aggressive version of American bases here in the Philippines to provoke China. To get that balance right will be very, very difficult. And the other important thing here is, what is the U.S. going to offer us aside from the $180 million of developing some of the sites in Cagayan, Isabela, all of those 9 sites under EDCA? Because I think what President Marcos Jr. wants is, as he said, we want trade, not aid. Are they going to offer us free trade agreement? Are they offer us good investment deals for infrastructure? And more importantly, when it comes to our geopolitical interests, are the Americans going to offer us good weapons, finally good weapons, modern fighter jets, modern missile systems on an affordable basis? So this is going to be a little bit usapan palengke, no? A lot of growth talks is going to happen there, yeah.
All right, so definitely.